Okay, so this is true confession. I have to tell you, I find this passage challenging and hard to preach about. And so today, I find that as I gather here today, as I walked over and saw the youth when I went over to put some stuff down for the pottery stuff that we'll be doing later, I'm a little unsettled. And perhaps that's not a bad thing, because I think there are times that we need to be unsettled. As I looked at this passage, I had to put it in context. Jeremiah was prophesying during the last years of the southern kingdom. That's that you know the kingdom was divided in the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. 10 tribes made the northern kingdom, the 2 tribes made the southern kingdom. The fall of the southern kingdom was with the destruction of Jerusalem, the temple by the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar. Took place around 587 BCE. The northern kingdom had fallen to the Assyrians around 722. Jeremiah, even though he preaches to the southern kingdom, I've read, and this is where I need Paul to help me out, because Paul is much more a scholar of history than I am. But Jeremiah grew up knowing a lot about the northern kingdom, but he prophesied to the southern kingdom here. At first, the southern kingdom had a good king. There weren't many good kings, but one of the good kings was King Josiah, which I remember because we had a church cat named Josiah. Josiah came in, he was doing reforms, and things were going well, but then Josiah was killed and things turned around. So in this passage today, we have Jeremiah is reflecting on responding to the events going on during turbulent times. He is the one the Lord has chosen to go and prophesy to the people. And I have to tell you, most of the time when prophets are told to go say something, lots of times it's things that we need to hear but probably don't want to hear. According to our text today, before the Lord would let Jeremiah hear what he had to say, the Lord tells Jeremiah to get up and to go down to the potter's house. I can imagine that Jeremiah thought, okay, that's a little odd, but yeah, I'll go do that. When Jeremiah arrives at the potter's house, he sees the potter doing what a potter normally does, sitting there, working on a vessel. And so Jeremiah looks and he watches and he observes and he sees that the vessel that the potter is making is spoiled. That is, that it's not even, it's crooked, it's crumbling a little. And he watches as the potter simply starts over, reworks the clay into a vessel that seems good to him. Jeremiah that day would not only hear the words of the Lord, but he would also have a powerful visual of the potter, symbolic of God's creative activity in the world. A potter or yolster is one who takes the most common, perhaps even seemingly worthless element of the earth, the clay itself, and transforms it into something functional and valuable. An artisan at work, crafting, creating, taking a lump, a glob of clay, forming it in something that has purpose and beauty. Jeremiah is here. He observes all this. He knows what's going on. And now the Lord is ready to speak to Jeremiah. He says, can I not do just as a potter does to my people of Israel? Can I not take them? Can I not refashion them? Can I not start over? At any moment, I may decide to pull up a people or a country by the roots and get rid of them. But if they repent of their wicked lives, I will think twice and start over with them. What a powerful image given of God, likened to that of a potter, thinking, planning, devising that which he wishes to create. I've never done pottery myself, but I have watched, and I know it's hands-on and it gets messy. It involves forming and molding and touching. And I like this visual of God being personally involved, forming and molding and touching God's creation, laboring over it, recreating, transforming it into something useful and beautiful. I like the image, even though it is painful, because it is painful when we have to change our ways many times. I like the image of smoothing out the rough places and making it thinner where it needs to be thin and thicker where it needs to be thick. Sally Brown, in her commentary, writes, says, every potter exercises constant judgment about the condition of the clay and the shape of the emerging work and responds accordingly. She may moisten the mixture, press it deeply here, shape it there. For a time, the clay is potable and the pieces can be mended or recentered as needed. God is determined out of love for the world to shape communities whose distinctive ways of worship and life bear witness to the redemptive purposes of God. When we do not do that, the text tells us communities can be broken down. And then she goes on to say this, it's an inconvenient but necessary truth for every community of faith to face. Prophets bear witness to the Word of God. They are truth tellers. Their words, I believe, are meant to cause people to pause, to take inventory and accountability for their actions and words or lack thereof, warning them, challenge them to change and be more faithful in their living. I love what Sally Brown says at the very beginning. Every potter exercises constant judgment about the condition of the clay and the shape of the emerging work and responding accordingly. Constant judgment. God is looking and knows us, seeing what our works are if we are doing good deeds. Though this text has cause for us to stop and individually do some soul searching, I believe it is really meant for the faith community to take a look at itself and see if it's reflecting the love of God. So as I thought about this, the question that obviously came to mind is, are we doing that? Are we, Pine Shores Presbyterian Church, is this faith community reflecting the love of God? Are we doing that? How do we do that? I have struggled, struggle's not the right word. I have let this question linger with me. Are we reflecting the love of God? And I have to say that as I've thought about this over the days, my answer is mixed. Yes, there is no doubt that we truly want to be faithful followers of Jesus Christ, that we want to be considered a light to the world, bearers of the good news, welcoming and loving and supporting, trying to be good and faithful in all that we do and all that we say. And I believe that there are many ways that we do this. But here's my angst, here's perhaps maybe my uncomfortableness, here's where I fall, and maybe it's me and not you. But for me, I know that there are times that I don't, and I think we as a church, we don't speak up and don't step out. Whether it's out of fear of offending others or not wanting to get involved, knowing that involvement can be messy and difficult and time-consuming and personal. I wonder if we're reluctant to take the risk to be bold, to be brave in face of adversity. I didn't even have this in here, but looking at Beth, I love what Family Promise has done. They haven't let up. There are all sorts of people who want to close the doors, and yet they won't allow excuses or rationalization or justifying what they can and can't do. I wonder if that little voice in our head that warns us to stay away from those issues, you know, they're controversial, highly charged, political. You know the issues as well as I know the issues that we go all around but sometimes do not touch. Issues of safety and hospitality of immigration. I mean, we, the church, have got to decide where we stand on that. They're not easy things to handle. Children separated from families, pain and suffering. I was at a thing at Bethel yesterday, and more of them are losing their jobs because their employers are scared that their paperwork might not be good enough. And these are people who have been around a while. And I see one woman talk with tears in her eyes. I don't know, it's a conversation we have to have. We have to talk about scarcity and abundance. We need to talk about the great divide of wealth in our country. We also need to talk about individual rights versus rights of the community, and we have to grapple once again, as we always have, with issues surrounding gun laws, issues that are with sound conversation, with good conversation, hearing both sides, because I know that we are smart enough to come to conclusions that are good for all people. We have to talk about issues of inclusiveness, gender issues, race issues, equality issues, stewardship of our resources and land. Go ask somebody young. I've been asking people around, the young people, meaning somebody under, 40s maybe, in their 30s and 20s. You know what their number one issue is? What do you think their number one issue is? Ask your children, ask your grandchildren. What do you think their number one issue is? Climate. They don't know what's going to be around here in 20, 30 years. We have to talk about what we are doing with our stewardship. These are the very issues, the difficult ones, the messy ones, the ones that are not black and white, but are gray, where there is tension and disagreement. It is here where we, the community of faith, are presented with opportunities for self-reflection and examination to see how we are showing the love of God. And then to explore ways in which we can do an even better job of reflecting God's love. The good news, as a faith community, these discussions are not done in a vacuum, but done surrounded by the presence of a living God, who in this passage from Jeremiah is likened to that of the potter, who with great care and patience shapes and reshapes the vessel until it's transformed into a vessel of worth and purpose and beauty. We, the church, community of faith, are similar to the clay that can be and is being reshaped, reformed, molded, changed, transformed into a people who allow the light of Christ to shine. A people who are bearers of the love of God. Doers. I love that song. It's one of the songs I like to sing. It's kind of a newer song, but it talks about justice and joy. Where there is justice, there is joy. I want to end this morning with a story behind the song we just sang right after sitting with Charlotte, Change My Heart, O God. If you look in your hymn books, you'll see it's by Eddie Espinosa. And Lindsay Terry had an interview with him, a phone interview, and this is what Eddie shared with Terry, and this is Eddie's words. When Terry asked him about this song, he says, "The year was 1982, and I had been a Christian since 1969. But I saw a lot of things in my life that needed to be discarded. I had slowly become more complacent. I acknowledged my complacency, and I prayed to the Lord, the only way that I can follow you is for you to change my appetite, the things that draw me away. You, O Lord, must change my heart. Eddie continued that shortly thereafter, I was in my car on my way to my work, feeling this desire to draw nearer to God. And with the wrestling still going on in my heart, suddenly a melody and some words began to flood through my mind. As I stopped at a stop sign, I reached for something to write on. He said the first thing I found was a small piece of yellow paper, which, by the way, he still has. And he began to write as rapidly as he could. And these are the words that he wrote as he kept the melody in his mind. Change my heart, O God, make it ever true. Change my heart, O God, may I be like you. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me. This is what I pray. Change our heart, O God. Lead us in your way. Mold us and fashion us as your children, as your people. This is what I pray.